this meeting to order. If I can ask Mr. Meadows if he would lead us in a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Absolutely. If we could rise, please, and then observe a moment of silence, and then I'll lead us in the pledge. Let us pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Do I have a motion to move into work session?
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Fizikowski? I'm sorry, Mr. Fizikowski?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Can't have two chairs.
Well, good evening, everyone. We appreciate you coming out on a Monday evening to have a discussion about the proposed fiscal year 2022-2023 budget. I know that there were some questions that came up last week. I think we got those responses out to everyone towards the end of the week. I know we've had several other questions that have been asked over the weekend and today that we're working on gathering information on. If there are any other questions we can answer this evening, we'll be glad to try to do that. The purpose of tonight's meeting is for the board hopefully to take a vote on what the advertised tax rate and advertised budget would be for fiscal year 2022-2023. As we've discussed in previous meetings, the advertised rate and advertised budget, the numbers can decrease if the board feels that after further discussion you can reduce the rate from what you advertised. You just cannot increase the rate from what you advertised. So with that, I'll be quiet and see if there's any questions. Mark's here this evening. Angie and I will also do our best if there's questions we can answer easily. If there's some that require a little bit of research, we may have to send that information back out.
Very good. I'll start. We'll go around the room and see if any questions or concerns, and we'll start off with Supervisor Shepherd.
I don't have any questions. I think the proposed rates are fine. I don't have any problem with them.
Supervisor Bone.
I agree.
Supervisor DeMotts.
I don't have any questions this evening. Thank you.
Supervisor Fizikowski.
No questions, and I would be fine with just leaving the tax rates as they are.
Supervisor King.
No questions, and as the rest, I would be happy to leave the tax rate where they are now.
Vice Chair Biggs.
Okay, well, I, of course, am still concerned about, it looks like the number I heard to make the salaries work for the school employees was $1.2 million still needed, and I don't know what's being worked on or if anything's being worked on in regards to that on either side, so I am concerned about that. And I feel like because we don't know what the state's going to do, it puts us in a situation where we're having to make decisions without knowing all the cards on the table, but that happens a lot anyway, except this year they haven't called the General Assembly back yet. So I do have concerns about the school employee side. I don't know if there's any update anyone can give us on that. And the other thing that I am concerned about, that it's in this budget, but it's going to be a reoccurring, kind of expense, and that's our emergency medical services. And I really think that we need to look at in the future, not during budget season, but a way that we're going to deal with the increased costs for this, because all the different localities I've talked to that have implemented this, it's something that grows every year, and you sort of need to have a plan for it. And so the only way it's related to this budget is that we're putting, we have the money in here to start out. But what I'm saying is we need to be planning for how we're going to fund this in the future and not take away from other services, because I think that we can't afford to take away from other services. And our county is a very growing county, and I think you need to look like just going down Price's Fork Road. Price's Fork Elementary School is surrounded. So the pressure on the schools is just going to increase. And looking at school employee salaries is a very important part of our community. And so if in fact there's only enough money for a 2.5%, I guess I want to know again, will we get state money even for that? Or if you don't do the 5%, do you not get state money? I mean, what's the deal? Do we have an answer for any of that?
Me, can I say something?
Sure. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not the chair.
Yes. Supervisor King, please.
Don't kick too hard, you'll fly.
As far, and I was looking at figures, as far as their 5% pay increase, the state's gonna give them $1.9 million, correct?
That's correct.
Craig, and you allocated in your budget
2.1 million.
2.1 million. If you remember, in 20, when we allocated $3.4 million for them to give raises, we done the same thing we did for the county employees. We give them half, and then we come back in 2021 February, I think it was, and give them the other half, which their employees never got. So right there's $1.7 million they can use to come up to that 5%.
I'd like to add into that. Yes, I do believe that 1.7 million wasn't retroactive for the raises, and we did retroact ours
Right.
is that what you're talking about? Just to make sure I'm sure.
Right.
And we'll let Mr. Krantz in just a second. But to address, Mary, you're right. None of us know what the state's going to do. But fortunately, we have the ability to move forward knowing what our operating cost should be and continue on with that. Because I understand that with the 1.9 million from the state and then the 2.1 from the county, that would give them 4 million and get them almost there, okay? I am concerned, if I had citizens, and maybe Mr. Krantz can address this as well, about the possible payout for Dr. Meyer of up to $500,000. That is very concerning and is a valid question for the citizens of without cause. Lots of people have answers, and I understand HR where we might not be able to get into some of those things, but $500,000, that's a loss of money that could be used towards teachers' raises, for operating costs. So that is a huge amount of money to be concerned with. As our county is growing, and obviously you do have some concerns about emergency services, and other localities have shared that once you start this way, you will have more need, and that's something we will need to address as a board. It's been a struggling 2 years for the pandemic, and everyone has stepped up. And I'd like to see, because our citizens have stepped up and helped a lot too, on the tax rate, I'd like to lower the tax rate since we do have a growth, and that economic growth will entice and retain people and bring businesses here. And so I'm in favor of lowering the tax rate. And we're getting ready to reassessment. That can play a factor as well. People are dealing with inflation, cost of living is higher. So I'd like to see us lower the real estate tax rate.
So if you want to lower it and 1 penny is over $900,000, you have to be willing to cut something out of the budget.
And we can look at where we could tighten that up, but I feel that the citizens need some relief as well, and why not give them back to them if we're expecting a growth of $5.4 million.
Do you have any ideas of where we can cut these $900,000 a penny out?
We were giving $920,000 as a one-time thing for school buses. If that's not going to be something that's receptible because it's not towards their capital, there's $920,000 there. That would benefit all of our citizens.
Are you saying that they don't need the buses?
No, I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying that they had some issues with us, the $920,000 that because it would be would be not considering an operating expense.
I haven't gotten any feedback about that.
Right,
that-
I'm just
is that
from the school board meeting that I watched. But Mr. Krantz can answer some of those questions too and clarify.
You want me to go ahead? Okay. On the capital, as I said in the school board meeting, philosophically, from a financial standpoint, using capital dollars for recurring operating expenses, I don't think is a sound move. Because what'll happen is if we use that for recurring, that takes care of this year. What do we do next year? What do we do 2 years from now? What do we do 3 years from now? The needs of the district far exceed any capital dollars you can give us. Okay? If I come and ask y'all about Kips Elementary, most would tell me it's fairly new. Kips is 28 years old. The operating mechanical units that we have inside the classrooms, I can't buy replacement parts. I got to machine them. Extremely expensive and takes a long time. That's just that school. I can go down the list and open up more, each of the individual schools we have. And that's no attack on anybody. That's what I've seen throughout my career in public education, is that because of the limited dollars that you as the appropriating body have, the limited dollars that schools have, there isn't enough money to address all the challenges that are sitting there on a day in, day out basis. From a pure financial standpoint, I would hope you don't change the way the $920,000 that Mr. Meadows described. Being able to use that to buy 8 buses will keep our fleet, within that 15-year range and not exceed it. I do think, coming down the pike though, talking about buses, and these are some of the challenges that we as a system have, if we go to electric buses. If I was to take every one of our buses and convert it to electric bus, that's $46 million. Where are we going to get those dollars? Where am I going to get the charging stations that are needed when a bus can only go 85 to 130 miles? I have runs on Catawba, Mount Tabor, some in Reiner community, that just one side of it is greater than 80 miles. How do I transport the kids? We'll buy more buses. I don't have enough drivers today. We raised our rates from $17 an hour to $20 an hour. We gave an incentive to attract people that have licenses. And even with that, we can't attract staff. And we're not the only one. It's not us. It's the surrounding, the economy and all. So I would hope that you don't touch the $920,000 just from Tommy's perspective. That's all I speak as of is Tommy. Mr. King, the problem we ran into with the raise is when we've done during the pandemic, we were very aggressive, like with meals and different things we did. By law, I've got to have a purchase order to match the expenditure. That purchase went against our operating budget. So then we needed to get the reimbursement to replenish that budget. And at the time, we didn't have the funds. We did the bonus, but we didn't have the funds to retroactive. Now, obviously, as things opened up, the administration made some decisions on how to spend those funds. People got their bonus, their raises, plus they got the bonus. Did they get a retro on the raise? No, they did not. But that was because of other decisions that got made by the administration. As far as Dr. Meyer, that is something I'd direct y'all to speak to your school board members. I'm not been authorized to speak about that agreement. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. I'll say that. I do know it, but there is misinformation that's sitting out there. So at the appropriate time, if I can get, at the joint meeting, whenever it may take place, I'll be glad to share it, but I've got to wait until I get school board approval in order to share that information with you. I hope I've covered all the tabs, but if
Well,
not, I apologize.
Yeah, the money from the state, I want to get this straight. So if, in fact, the school employees only get a 2.5%, nothing can be worked out. The county employees are getting the 5, school employees are getting the 2.5.
You
Do
got
you still get money from the state for that?
Yes, ma'am. So the state the governor's recommended a 5% raise. For us, that's 5.5 million, as Mr. King very well said. The state gave us 1.909 million. So if we give a 2.5% raise, the state will give us half of the $1.9 million, so basically $950,000. If you do not give a 2.5% raise, and now this is under the governor's budget, and there's 3 different budgets floating out
Right,
there. There's a
right.
governor, there's a House, and there's a Senate, both for there's a 22 adjusted. And then there's a 23. In the governor's budget, if you give it 2.5%, then you're eligible for the money in FY24, which is a 5.25. So he took 5%, 5% on top of the 5%, and that's how he got to the 5.25%. We get a little over $3 million in FY24. Why that much when we only got $1.9 million? I can't tell you, but that's how the state allocated their budget. I think part of it is if you look at our budget in FY23 from the governor, there's the first time ever a line item called construction. 3.966 million is what Montgomery County Public Schools is receiving or proposed to get. It is not intended in the write-up from the governor to be used for recurring purposes. It is a one-time fund. Now, the unique thing about it is it can go over a 3-year period of time. So it's not just 1 year, like typically. This could be spread over 3 years. The intent in the development of the budget was that Montgomery County's done a great job providing all of our students with computers. But there's generally 2 grades that we try to replenish each year. To do that, it's about $1.2 million. So that, and you can use those funds, that construction dollars, on your computer technology. So that was the intent, is rather than putting that in a capital budget or in, trying to use carryover funds, use 1.2 million of the 3.9 and be able to guarantee in FY23, 2 grades could be replenished on their computer system. So to answer your question, Ms. Biggs, yes, as long as we give a 2.5% raise, we're eligible for the state money in FY24. Now, when we talk about FY23, if you didn't get a chance to hear the school board meeting, the governor's budget is exactly what the calc tool said, and that's what we've got in our numbers today. The Senate budget would actually give us about 1.3 million more money. The House version would take 4.6 million away from us. And it's that far apart. And if you would like, I'll gladly sit down. I've got a schedule, it takes every category, every line item of the state budget, and you can see where the differences are between the governor, the House, and the Senate. So.
Supervisor King.
Well, on your buses, are y'all discussing to turn every one of them into electric buses?
Oh, no, sir. We've got 6 coming in, so we got 2 from AEP. Under that grant, we paid for the diesel, they paid for the difference. One of those will be in this month. The other one should be sometime in April is what we've been told. And then under DEQ, we got 4, and that's our capacity, because you got to tie it to the shorter runs, and we really want to see and learn what it's going to take to operate those buses. So I wouldn't go beyond that number.
All right. Well, I was just wondering, because
Oh, no, sir.
I think a diesel's what, 120,
Diesel run 105 right now.
105?
Yes, sir.
And then
A diesel's running 350.
Electrics is 430?
350, I'm sorry. I said it diesel, but electric's 350, plus the charging station.
Yeah.
A single charging station, is running $12,000 just for one little single. I mean, how do you afford this?
I appreciate you being here tonight, really do.
Oh, yes, sir.
Mr. Krantz, what's the life cycle of those electric buses?
Nobody's published anything. We're assuming 15 years, but honestly, Ms. Blevins, we're trying to learn how we're going to maintain them. We're trying to learn the requirements. Now, the good thing in this community is Blacksburg Transit's going to an all-electric fleet. So we're working with them and trying to learn from them as best we can. We're a little bit different, but we're trying to learn from them as well as we're learning on the fly.
Blacksburg Transit gets a lot of federal money too.
Correct, and they've got different runs. You know, they go a little bit shorter. They've got more of a flatter type area, but we're working with them, trying to learn what was the bad things, what were the things they would tell us to avoid, and try to learn and do, not make the same mistakes.
Do their buses have the same range, though?
No, ma'am.
Are they longer range or shorter range?
Actually, mine are longer.
Are they?
Yeah. I mean, for example, I took a bus down to Norfolk this weekend. We had and I know it because we had a bus break down while we were in Norfolk on Saturday. But think about that distance. And if I had to do electric, where do I charge at? Can I find a charging spot? I mean, it's the same thing that's happened with propane gas. And what's hindered propane gas from being the replacement for school buses is how do you do long trips? How do you know where to go? It's the same. Basically, it's a lot of the same challenges.
So can you use the same charging stations at the Sheetz gas stations?
I'd have to check out what kind of load they've got. My buses
They're
require-
Tesla charging stations.
Probably for a normal charge, we could. For an accelerated charge, no, ma'am. Our accelerated chargers are pretty heavy loads. We do know that. We'll be putting the single charge stations at the operations center. We have 4 of those that we got, and we'll put those at the op center. And we're getting ready to start that.
Mr. Krantz, how long does it take to charge a bus?
We've been told it's between 4 and 6 hours on a normal charge. So between my morning run and my afternoon run, it'd be extremely tight.
Anyone else have any follow-up questions or comments for Mr. Krantz?
I have a follow-up question.
Supervisor DeMont?
When you were discussing the 1.7 million and that retroactive raises were not given, you said administration made other decisions. What were they?
I'd have to go back in files and pull them up. It's been that long but it was on the expenses that you normally would have seen mostly with year-end type related funds that were done sooner than later. And it was done that way because there was some needs because, you know, year-end funds really shouldn't be spent on the future. You know, you really should try to use your dollars inside the year that you got it. That's where your benefit is. That's what you've asked for. You know, that's where you should try to match it up. Can't always do it, but that's what you should. But we really looked at where the administration said they had needs to ensure that the needs were stuff we were going to benefit from that school year, not somewhere down the future. Because I was conservative as much as I could with COVID and not knowing all we were going to have to spend.
And then to Chair Blevin's valid point about what the cost, if any, of a severance would be, taking the rumor mill and what people are saying totally out of it, it is a concern that would be better shared sooner rather than later. And I guess I tell you that to make sure that you understand that the school board needs to share that with us. We need to know because it's got to come from somewhere.
Right. And I will notify the board chairman
Thank you.
accordingly. Yes, ma'am.
Chair, I'm sorry, Supervisor Fidzikowski.
Still the chair. I can't get away from it. Do you expect a fairly large year-end? I mean, I know you've got a lot of projects going on, and I looked back at our February 28th meeting where we carry over, I think it was $2 or $3 million, and it was put towards Bellevue, but
Yeah, in the capital side, I don't envision, I think where we've got money, you know, in future capital projects is the best place for it. You know, we need to focus right now on the schools completing CES, BES, including the 2 turning lanes, which will be done during the summer. I've talked to VDOT, and those are scheduled to happen. And then complete CPS in December of 2022 and get all that done. I believe that everything we've allocated into those projects, we're solid. I don't think there's any additional funds need to come in. We're there. I mean, we've even, Mr. Fedjakowski put dollars in so that classrooms that maybe weren't getting as much of a renovation, we now come behind it and we're replacing the floor, we're painting the walls, making it, you know what I'm saying, as fresh as we possibly can. The other dollars would be making certain that we can complete that operations center. We've got our temporary certificate to use the garage. We're still tweaking some things. We'll then get into turning that football field and the existing parking lot into, you know, a facility that we can house 95 cars and can handle 75 school buses. Because right now, where we're at, that's a problem, is parking. It's limited. And so, and we knew that going in. So this will be the final stage to get that done. I don't see anything today that would say we want to spend anything in the summer. I just don't. And even if we did, it would be a challenge to get engineering drawings and get permits and get, and you know what I'm saying, get the materials and even get it done.
I guess what I'm thinking
We're
is.
sitting on $4 million of capital. We did close Cambria. That closed Friday.
Okay.
And so with that money in the pot, we're sitting at around 4.007 million. And those are dollars that are my intent is to let it sit until we can get through what we've got, do a good job with that, and then come back with a solid plan for both the school board and you to approve that master facilities plan.
I guess what I'm thinking is, it seems fairly typical that you all have carryover funds anywhere between $1 million and $2.5 million.
I think you're correct there, yes, sir.
And I was just wondering, with all the projects going on, once that's all tallied up, that there would be some, because I believe last week you told us that normally that's where you take your bus money from,
That's
is from
correct.
carryover?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's what I'm hoping is get to a comfort projected level number. So I could say I have, because if that is, you know, between $1 million and $2 million, let's say, then there is enough there to fund the pay increase and still be, you know, sitting on $750,000 to $1 million, you know, from a recurring basis on year-end funds, because that'd be a prudent use of those funds.
And I believe the superintendent, the former superintendent, told us that admin has increased by about 40 positions. Is that correct?
COVID positions increased 23.5. Admins probably about 10. I'd say it's closer to about 35. I can run you an exact schedule, but the COVID positions is 23.5. And those are the positions that legally can be paid out of COVID and are fine in FY23 and FY24. But ESSER 3, which is our last bit of CARES Act funds, goes away June of 2024. So when we go into 25, as I've said, those positions or some other position, but there's a shortfall of money for a pool of positions going into that FY25 budget.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Krantz, just to follow up, you said those COVID positions, the 23.5, are they're not going to be permanent positions? They're just positions that are paid with the CARES Act funding or URSA?
The funding that's paying for those positions is CARES Act. Now, what they will, when 25 comes, okay, will the administration and the board want to put those into their general budget and cut something else? Do they miraculously find more revenue, you know what I'm saying, to fund those positions? I don't know. But right now, today, I know that the funding source on those positions is not there when I look into 25. The funding I'm using goes away in 24.
Could you give me an example of what those positions are? Are they related directly because of
They related directly to instruction. So they're going to primarily be in schools. They'll primarily be school-related instruction, because that's the big purpose of ESSER 3, is learning loss. And that's the first of all the ESSER funds that's specifically focused on that educational component. Everything else was kind of general. 20% of the funds in ESSER 3 have to be used for learning loss. So for example, we use those to pay for summer school. We use those to fund these positions, which are clearly COVID, you know, are needed positions in the schools. The administration in 25, depending on revenue, And depending where things are at, we'll have to make some decisions if they want to maintain those positions with the rest of their budget.
Because that would be an operating, ongoing budget-based budget.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so just wanted to clarify because, you know, some, like you just said a little while ago, you don't want to add something that's a one-time
Correct.
money like this would be for, even though it's a couple years for the COVID, but one-time money, you wouldn't want to put that in a position that's going to go away. So that means, you know, possibility after the CARES funding, you have 23.5 positions that no longer would be funded
Correct.
unless you asked for more money for operational, correct?
True, but I mean, I think that the prudent plan for the district is to plan accordingly. We created the positions. There was a need, I'm not disputing that. But it behooves us to do everything we can do to keep our budget balanced, rather than continuing to think that we can come to y'all. You have a limited dollar as well. And so we need to try to do everything possible. If we do that, then I've got a fighting chance to be heard. You know what I'm saying? But if I'm not fiscally prudent with those funds, then why would I expect to get a reception? You know what I'm saying? Enjoy, rightfully so. You know, get y'all to say, yeah, we'll do it. We need to keep our own house in order. And that's what I've communicated throughout the district.
And do those 23 and a half employees know that this was only a temporary
I could not
position
answer
until?
that. They do not work for me directly. I believe some know it. Whether they all do, I can't answer that question.
Okay. All right, very good. And you said possibly 10 in administration that were added. I think that's what,
Correct. I think
Okay.
that'd be a fair number.
okay. Any other questions?
I have another question.
Supervisor DeMotts?
Do you anticipate any changes in the budget with the change in leadership of the schools?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Because you go into, you know, an interim, which I did in Richmond for 8 months, so I've had the pleasure of doing this. No, ma'am, I believe you'll see us cold. I mean, Annie will do a great job. Which direction they go with the permanent, I'm not part of that process, and so. But I think at the end of the day, Montgomery County's got an excellent school system. Y'all really do. Y'all have an excellent school system. Y'all are an integral part of that because of which role y'all play as the appropriating body. And I think there'll be a lot of very good candidates for the job, and I don't think the district can make a mistake with this. But
I just meant with the budget
I
as
did too.
presented, if there were any type of philosophical changes in how we are
I did not
handling
hear anything.
administration or hiring of new principals.
I didn't
or-
hear anything from the school board.
Okay.
And I would have expected to get a little bit either in the sessions or privately, and I haven't had anything like that. So I do not anticipate any changes to the budget.
Okay. Will you have a budget book for us soon?
The old one's there, the new one, it's in proof, it's in my desk, and we'll have one for you by next week.
Great, thank you.
And Mr. Krantz,
Frost, I can prove fast.
well, we're all looking forward to that booklet, so we appreciate that. Mr. Krantz, usually if the board decides for a permanent superintendent, is that usually a national search? And what will be the cost, or if you can just give us, back in 2016, what was the cost?
2015, they did do a search. I'll text you, I don't know the cost, but I'll text it to
Yeah,
you.
you used it was,
Ray and Associates
Thank
is
you.
who I was told they used.
Do you have any idea of what that cost?
No, ma'am, if I did, I'd be guessing at it.
Okay.
But I'll get that to you. I'll text it to you, and you can text it to the rest of the board, and first thing in the morning,
Okay,
I can get that text to you.
okay. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Supervisor?
So we're not paying Dr. Myers right now. So we're saving his salary, is that correct?
I didn't
have
say
no
we
idea.
were or we were not.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, and y'all know this, okay? In my 4 years here, I've been upfront, but this is one that I would need to have school board approval before I could discuss it. I'm just not at liberty. I will pass along to the board chair y'all's questions and take my directions from there. And again, I apologize, that's not me, but I have to follow this to the T.
I guess the other big question do you see there any delay with the moving forward on the Christiansburg High School project with this change in leadership?
No, ma'am. We have the CMR, we're talking about both firms to get a contract. One firm is probably within 1 day of being ready to sign. The other firm says they'll be ready by the end of this week. Time will tell. We are working diligently with the town of Christiansburg to do site work as far as a new bus loop and a new staff parking lot. The town has been receptive to it from my conversations with Gay and Neal, who's representing us. We will have the final plans delivered to them by Friday of this week. On the land where the funeral home's at, that road that comes in, between there and Franklin, are proposing to blast that whole area because it's all rock. We would pave it in a perfect world, but we don't think there'll be enough time. So the intent is to get the rock out, lay down gravel, we can use it temporarily, and then at any time we can come behind it. The goal is to be doing construction on the addition starting as soon as possible, but we're thinking September, October, and we still believe we can get it done in 12 months. And
The entire project?
no, the addition.
Okay.
Yeah, I wish. I wish.
Yeah.
I know I'm crazy, but I ain't that
Vicious,
crazy.
yeah.
Maybe I had too many carbs for dinner. What'd you say?
Yes.
What'd you say?
It's ambitious, yes.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Krantz.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank
Tom.
you.
Chair Blevins, one thing I wanted to, and this goes to Vice Chair Biggs' comment, it's not related to schools, but I know the question or concern has come up about the first responders and the emergency services. One of the things that we are already talking about internally that we'll be talking to the board about as we go into the new fiscal year is pursuing fee-for-service revenue recovery. So that is definitely going to be an opportunity to generate some revenue to help offset. Now, I can't make any assurances because we haven't studied it that deeply yet to know exactly how much of that will cover our expenditures, but we will have a revenue source coming in from that. The flip side of that challenge, as you well know, is, we know from talking to other jurisdictions that when they have started into this program, it generally moves much more quickly than anybody ever thinks that it will. So that will be a challenge for sure. But it's not that we haven't thought about it and are looking at options to provide funding, but.
I was talking to Billy Kiger today from Rockingham County. Y'all know that's right outside Harrisonburg, and their response time is 7 to 10 minutes. Every ambulance is equipped like an emergency room, and they have paid staff that can do what would be done, like advanced life support. That's pretty impressive for, a rural county.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So, and they're willing to share, it took them a long time to get to where they are, but they're willing to share. And on the fire side of it, I found out something interesting too. They were able to get 2 safer grants from the federal government that are there for firefighters, and they pay the first 2 years for paid firefighters. Then you don't have to pay it back, but gives you a chance to get organized about how you might, pay for something like that, so.
Yeah, we're definitely aware of that, and again,
Yeah,
there's no
it's
plans to
interesting.
get into the fire side of the business anytime soon, but
Yeah.
those safer grants have been around for a long time, and that would be an option if we were to move in that direction going forward.
Yeah. But as far as the tax rate goes, I would not favor lowering it to be advertised. I think that, the budget that Craig has proposed, has to have the real estate property tax where it is. And I think that, I can support that. I am concerned about, making a decision with not knowing everything, but that, like you said, that happens every year. But I could not support lowering it. I think we have too many needs out there right now to look at that. And with reassessment coming next year, that's when you look at how you might adjust things. That would just be something I would throw into the mix.
My concern was just with the inflation and cost of living, and with us having some growth, expected growth in our revenue, that it would be an opportunity to express our thankfulness to our citizens for stepping up. It's been very challenging for them, even when we gave them some relief of not giving a penalty for their tax pay, they were able to still pay on time, and that didn't affect us. So I was just thinking of ways that if we have this growth, this would be a good opportunity to lower that tax rate, and that would entice and retain even more growth for the county.
That's something to explore. I don't know if the county's entertained that idea again, if we wanted to.
Of lowering the tax rate?
No, of allowing people to pay later. That did help a lot of people. It was a good gesture, and some people took advantage of it.
Well, we have to remember too that, along with citizens having to pay more for everything, everybody else is going to have to pay more for everything, including government, schools, all of that's going to go up. So it's a hard balancing thing to think about.
I think when you think about lowering the property tax rate, you think about who stands to benefit the most from that. And it certainly won't be those who need to benefit the most from it. The more real estate you own, the more you benefit. The less real estate you own, the less it even affects you. So I think that there are other ways to look into if we're interested in pursuing that type of cost offset for the citizens. I don't think through real estate tax is the right way to do it, just because it disproportionately benefits those who have more money already.
Any other comments? All right, do we have a motion to come out of work session?
Motion?
Second.
A motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Madam Chair and board members, you have, under new business this evening, you do have a resolution establishing advertised tax rates and an advertised fiscal year 2022-2023 budget. As presented, there's two blanks in that resolution. As presented in my presentation to the board, the real estate tax rate would be 89 cents per 100 of assessed valuation. And the second blank for the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget, the amount is, and Mark and Angie, correct me if I'm wrong, $220,385,913. So that is what ties to the proposed budget. I just offer that to fill in those two blanks.
All right, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
No.
I have 6 ayes, 1 no.
All right. On to.
May I make a comment? It's completely different subject, but Ms. Clerk, all of your votes for the previous vote said absent.
I seen that. I'm
Thank
going to
you.
fix it right after.
I really appreciate Vicky over there because she's listening with one ear and typing with two hands, and so thank you, Vicky. Thanks for catching that.
All right, other business. A reminder of dates, we do have a regular scheduled board meeting next Monday, March the 28th. Then we will have a public hearing for the budget on April the 7th. Is that the same time, 7:15?
No, ma'am, that one, we advertised that one, I believe, at 6 o'clock. Is that correct, on April 7th?
April 7th?
Yes.
6 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah.
6 o'clock? Thank you.
Yes, but I have.
Any other business?
Thursday.
Thursday.
And board members, we appreciate your patience with us this week as well. As you well know, staff is meeting with bond rating agencies on Thursday for the upcoming debt issue for schools in the county. And I don't ever remember working on a debt issue and a budget at the same time. I'm sure somewhere back in history I have, but it's been a little crazy. So we just ask your patience if you have questions. One question that I do know that's come up at least twice is how much is a penny on the tax rate now? 903,000, Mark, give or take? 903,000. So we are over 900,000 now.
In your book.
Yeah, Mark will get mad at me because he knows it exactly, but I think that's within $1,000.
It rounds to 904.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
904.
904, excuse me. Thank you guys for your support and your patience with us as we work through this as well.
All right, then we stand adjourned. Thank you.